Ethan had seen Zyra fly through meteor storms without blinking, but today, she slammed her hands onto the control panel so hard the whole ship shook. Alarms screamed. Lights flickered. All because I had said one sentence about another woman. I stared at her, waiting for an explanation. She didn't look at me. Her breathing was sharp, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim cockpit. "Zyra, what was that for?" I asked. Her voice was low. "Don't ever say her name again." Before I could reply, the proximity alarm began to beep. Something massive was following us, and judging by the way Zyra's hands tightened on the controls, I realized she knew exactly who it was. The ship floated smoothly through the asteroid belt, its silver hull glinting in the faint light of distant stars. Inside the cockpit, Ethan sat in the co-pilot's seat, scrolling through the navigation logs. His alien colleague, Zyra, was at the main controls, her long fingers moving with quiet precision. For the past hour, neither of them had said much. It was just the soft hum of the engines and the occasional beep from the control panel. Ethan leaned back in his seat and let out a small laugh. "You know," he said casually, "this reminds me of a run I once did with another pilot." Her name was. Before he could finish, Zyra's hand came down on the control panel with a sudden force. The ship shuddered, and warning lights blinked on. Ethan sat upright, startled. "Oh, what was that for?" he asked, trying to understand what just happened. Zyra didn't answer. Her golden eyes were fixed on the navigation screen, but Ethan could see her hands trembling slightly. Her breathing had changed to faster, sharper. "Zyra," he said. Again, softer this time. "What's wrong?" She still didn't look at him. "Don't," she said quietly, "ever say her name again." Ethan blinked, confused. "I didn't even finish saying it." "You know her or something?" Her eyes flicked to him for just a second, and in that moment he saw something he had never seen on her face before. Fear. Real, deep fear. Zyra was one of the calmest beings he knew. She had flown through asteroid storms without flinching, negotiated with smugglers without losing her cool. But now, she looked like someone who had just seen a shadow from their past. "Okay," Ethan said slowly. "You want to tell me why?" The proximity alarm cut him off. A sharp, rising tone filled the cockpit. On the display, a small red blip appeared behind them. Something was following their ship. Ethan leaned forward. "What is that?" "Pirates." Zyra's eyes stayed on the blip. "No," she whispered. Ethan waited for her to say more, but she didn't. Instead, she changed course, suddenly guiding the ship away from its original path. The engines hummed louder as the ship accelerated. The red blip followed. "Okay, that's not good," Ethan muttered. "Want to tell me why we're running?" Zyra didn't reply. Her focus was absolute, but there was a tension in her posture. Her shoulders were rigid, her jaw tight. Ethan tried again. "Zyra, you're starting to freak me out." "Who's out there?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. "She is not who you think she is." Ethan frowned. "Wait, are you saying the woman I mentioned?" Zyra's hands tightened on the controls. "Don't ask questions right now." The red blip on the screen moved closer, then vanished for a second. The tracking system glitched, static filling the display. When the image cleared, the blip was gone. "Did we lose it?" Ethan asked. Zyra didn't answer. She glanced at the side monitor, checking something quickly before shutting it off. For a moment, she just sat there, still as stone. Ethan watched her carefully. "You're hiding something," he said. "I can tell." She turned her head slowly toward him, her expression unreadable. "Not everything should be told in the open," she said, her tone almost like a warning. Before Ethan could say anything else, the control panel flickered again. A faint green light on the far side of the cockpit began to blink. It wasn't part of the standard ship system. He knew that much. "What's that?" he asked, pointing at it. Zyra's gaze darted to the light. For a split second, he thought he saw panic in her eyes. Without a word, she reached over and pressed a button, and the light went dark. Ethan leaned closer. "That wasn't a ship signal, was it?" "That was a message." Zyra didn't confirm it, but her silence said enough. They drifted in silence. For a while, the hum of the engines filling the space between them. Ethan could feel the air was heavier now, as if the very ship knew something was wrong. Finally, he said, You've flown with me for months. We've been through storms, breakdowns, bad deals, and I've never seen you like this. Whoever she is, she's not just some random pilot, is she?" Zyra's eyes stayed fixed on the stars ahead. Her voice, when it came, was low and steady. "No, she's much more than that." Ethan waited for her to explain, but instead, she reached over to the navigation console and locked their course manually. It was something she only did when she didn't want the autopilot to override her decisions. "Get some rest," she said. "We have a long flight ahead." Ethan didn't argue, but his mind was racing. Something in the way she spoke told him that rest was the last thing either of them was going to get. And somewhere out there, in the darkness of space, someone or something was still looking for them. In the quiet of the cockpit, the proximity. Alarm stayed silent, but Ethan had the uneasy feeling that the real danger hadn't gone anywhere. It was just waiting. The ship drifted through open space, the asteroid belt now far behind them. The stars outside seemed calm, but Ethan could feel Zyra's tension filling the cockpit. She had barely spoken since the moment she changed their course. Her hands rested on the controls. Steady now, but her eyes kept moving to the side monitors, as if she expected something to appear. Ethan leaned forward in his seat. "You going to tell me who's following us?" he asked quietly. Zyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she adjusted a few settings on the navigation panel, checking their position. Only then did she say, "It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is that we don't let them catch us." "That's not an answer," Ethan said, watching her closely. "You've been different since I mentioned that other pilot. Is that really what this is about?" Her golden eyes flicked toward him, just for a second. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." Before she could respond, the sensors beeped again. A faint signal appeared too small to be a ship, but steady. It wasn't ahead of them or behind them. It was off to their right, keeping the same speed. Ethan narrowed his eyes. "That's strange. It's not closing in, just matching us." Zyra's jaw tightened. She pressed a few buttons, and the display changed to a widescreen mode. For a moment, the signal vanished, then returned again in the exact same position. Ethan sat back. "So it's watching us, it's tracking us," Zyra corrected softly. "And it knows exactly where we're going." "How?" "We changed course." Her silence told him everything. Someone had planned for this. Someone knew how Zyra flew, how she thought. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. "You've flown with me long enough to know I'm not going to stop asking. Who is it?" Zyra kept her eyes on the stars ahead. "She's someone I used to trust," she said finally. "Before I learned what she really was." The words hung in the air between them. "You mean the pilot I mentioned?" Ethan asked. "You know her personally?" Zyra gave the smallest nod. "She is not just a pilot. She is a hunter, and once she decides to find you, she will." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "A hunter? For what?" Zyra's hands paused on the controls. For a moment, Ethan thought she wasn't going to answer. Then she said, "For me." He studied her face. "What did you do?" Her voice was calm but firm. "Nothing that I regret." But in her eyes, "It's enough for her to chase me until one of us can't run anymore." Before Ethan could ask more, the cockpit lights flickered. The hum of the engines dipped for a second, then steadied again. Zyra's head snapped toward the systems panel, scanning the readouts. "That wasn't random, was it?" Ethan asked. Zyra shook her head slowly. "She's close enough to touch our systems. That means she's not far." Ethan turned toward the window, peering into the endless stretch of black. There was nothing there, no lights, no shadows, no movement. And yet, he felt it too. Something was out there, watching. A faint chime came from the communications panel. It wasn't the normal ship-to-ship signal. It was softer, slower, private. Zyra's gaze fixed on it for a brief second, and without hesitation, she pressed a button to shut it off. Ethan's eyes widened. "That was her, wasn't it?" Zyra didn't answer. "She's trying to talk to you," he pressed. "Why not just hear what she has to say?" "Because hearing her voice is the first step to letting her in," Zyra said quietly. "And once she's in, she never leaves." The calmness in her tone only made it more unsettling. Ethan leaned back, running his hands over his face. "This just keeps getting better. So now we've got a silent ship following us. A mysterious hunter who knows you, and a captain who refuses to tell me what she's really after. You don't need to know everything right now, Zyra replied. What you do need to know is that we cannot stop. Not for fuel, not for repairs, not until we're far beyond her reach. Ethan glanced at the navigation screen. That's going to take days. Zyra didn't respond. Instead, she adjusted their course again, angling toward a region of space Ethan didn't recognize. The stars shifted outside the cockpit window, revealing a faint, bluish haze in the distance. What is that? He asked. Zyra's eyes stayed on the haze. Somewhere she won't want to follow us. Why not, you'll see, she said simply. Ethan didn't like the sound of that. But as the ship glided silently toward the strange, shimmering light, he couldn't shake the feeling that Zyra's plan might not be to escape at all, but to confront whatever was coming. The bluish haze ahead grew larger with every passing minute, swirling like a slow-moving cloud in the emptiness of space. Ethan had never seen anything like it. It wasn't on the standard star charts, and the ship's database gave no information. The closer they got, the more he noticed how it shimmered in layers, as if several veils of light were floating together. Zyra kept her eyes fixed on it, her hands steady on the controls. She had been quiet for too long, and Ethan could no longer hold back his questions. So, he began carefully, you said this woman is a hunter, that she's after you. What exactly does she want? Zyra's golden eyes shifted toward him. Just for a moment. She wants to finish something she started long ago. That's not much of an answer, Ethan replied. Was she your rival? A friend you had a fight with? She was my closest ally, Zyra said quietly. We trained together, flew together, survived battles side by side. I trusted her more than anyone. Ethan leaned forward. What happened? For a few seconds, Zyra's gaze softened, as though she was somewhere far away in her memory. I learned the truth about what she was doing. She was taking assignments from people who use others for their own gain. Entire crews would disappear. After she visited them, I confronted her. She didn't deny it. Ethan frowned. So you walked away? No, Zyra said, her voice low. I took something from her. Something she wasn't supposed to have. Ethan's curiosity sharpened. What was it? Her hands moved over the navigation panel as she guided them closer to the haze. An object, small, but powerful. It doesn't belong to anyone. It's ancient. But in the wrong hands, it can be dangerous. I couldn't let her use it. Ethan thought back to the strange energy spike he had seen in the ship's cargo logs weeks ago. It's here, isn't it? On this ship. Zyra didn't confirm or deny it. She simply said, the moment you spoke her name, she knew where to find me. She has ways of listening across long distances. Ethan glanced toward the view outside. The haze was much closer now, and he could see flickers of movement within its shapes that seemed to fade in and out of sight. You're heading in there, he said slowly. Yes, Zyra replied. It's a place she will hesitate to follow. The cloud distorts signals, scrambles sensors. Inside, we'll have a chance to disappear. Ethan wasn't sure if disappearing into a strange cloud was better than being chased, but he trusted Zyra's skill. Still, one question kept burning in his mind. If she's as dangerous as you say, why not just give this thing back and end it? Zyra's eyes flashed briefly. Because if she gets it, she will not stop at me. She will go after worlds that cannot defend themselves. Ethan felt a small chill. Even though the temperature in the cockpit hadn't changed, he could hear the quiet determination in her voice, and it left no room for argument. The ship entered the edge of the haze. The stars outside blurred, their light bending in strange patterns. The control screens flickered for a moment, static crawling across the displays. Ethan checked the sensors, the tracking signals gone. For now, Zyra said, she's still out there, waiting. As they moved deeper, a faint vibration hummed through the ship, almost like a low musical note. Ethan glanced at Zyra. What's that sound? The haze is alive, she said calmly. It's not dangerous if we move carefully. Ethan decided not to ask what would happen if they didn't move carefully. Instead, he watched the shifting lights outside, each swirl of color making the space around them feel both close and endless at the same time. Then something unexpected happened. A small green light began blinking on the side panel. Again, Ethan recognized it instantly. "It's her," he said. Zyra's hands froze above the controls. The light blinked slowly, steadily. This time, Zyra didn't shut it off immediately. She stared at it for several seconds before speaking. "She won't stop calling. She wants me to answer so she can trace us." Ethan leaned closer. "What if she's not trying to trace us? What if she just wants to talk?" Zyra shook her head slightly. "Her words are never just words. Every sentence is a step into a trap still." Ethan noticed the hesitation in her voice. "Part of you wants to hear what she has to say," he said quietly. Zyra didn't respond. The blinking continued. Outside, the haze shifted again, and for the briefest moment, Ethan thought he saw a shadow moving far behind them, something large, partly hidden in the swirling light. The light on the panel kept blinking. Each flash seemed louder than the last. Finally, Zyra reached toward it, her hand hovering above the control. "If I answer," she said softly, "you may hear things you wish you hadn't." Ethan didn't look away from her. "I'll take that risk." Her fingers pressed the button. The cockpit filled with a low hum. And then a voice came through, smooth and sharp at the same time. "Hello, Zyra. Still running, I see." The voice that filled the cockpit was calm, almost pleasant. Yet there was something in it that made the air feel heavier. Ethan glanced at Zyra, but her expression remained unreadable. "You found a very unusual place to hide." The voice continued. "The haze, always so unpredictable. But then again, you were never one to choose the easy path." Zyra's hands rested on the controls, her gaze fixed forward, not at the blinking panel. "Why are you here?" she asked, her tone even. A soft laugh came through the speakers. "Because you have something that belongs to me, and because I missed our conversations." Ethan shifted uncomfortably. The voice sounded almost friendly, yet there was a sharpness under every word, like hidden glass. "If you know we're in the haze, why not come in after us?" he asked. There was a pause, and then the voice replied, "Because this place has rules. Rules even I must respect. But you can't stay in there forever." Zyra didn't respond. So the voice continued. "Do you remember the day we first took the oath, Zyra? You said we'd always stand side by side, no matter what. I believed you. I still do." "You believe what suits you," Zyra said quietly. The voice sighed. "You've changed, but I think deep down you still understand me. You took the artifact not to stop me, but because you knew I'd come for it. You wanted this." Ethan's eyes darted to Zyra. Her expression was still calm, but her fingers tightened slightly on the console. "I wanted to protect it," she said. "Nothing more. Protect it from me." The voice chuckled softly. "Zyra, you know the artifact is not dangerous in the right hands." "My hands," Ethan leaned toward the mic. "That's not what she thinks, and honestly, from what I've heard, I believe her." There was a short silence. Then the voice replied with an almost amused tone. "And who are you? The human you've been talking to her for, what, a few weeks? Be careful, Zyra has a way of leaving out details." Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but Zyra's hand lifted slightly, signaling him to stay quiet. The voice lowered, becoming almost gentle. "Zyra, I'm not your enemy. Let me prove it. Meet me outside the haze. No tricks, no games. If I wanted to harm you, I wouldn't be asking." Ethan frowned. "That sounds like a trap." "Everything sounds like a trap to someone who's afraid," the voice replied. "But I'll give you time to think about it. I'll be waiting where the haze begins to fade." The signal cut, and the cockpit fell into silence. Only the soft hum of the ship remained. Ethan turned to Zyra. "You're not going to meet her, are you?" Zyra didn't answer immediately. Her gaze drifted to the swirls of light outside, each one shifting and bending like strands of silk. "She never says exactly what she means," she finally said, "but she doesn't lie about waiting." "That's not comforting," Ethan muttered. Zyra tapped a few controls, adjusting their course deeper into the haze. "We need to reach the core. There's a place there where the artifact's energy can be masked completely. If we do that, even she won't be able to track us." Ethan nodded slowly, but his mind kept circling back to the voice. It had been unsettling, almost as if it knew him somehow, even though they had never met. As they moved deeper, the haze grew denser, the ship's lights seemed dimmer, and shapes moved in the distance, shapes that didn't match any known vessel. Some seemed to drift lazily, while others darted quickly, disappearing as soon as Ethan tried to focus on them. At one point, a faint pulse of light passed under the ship, traveling in a slow wave. Ethan leaned forward to look. What was that? Zyra didn't take her eyes off the controls. The haze responds to movement. Sometimes it shows you things, sometimes it hides them. That's vague, Ethan said. But before he could ask more, the navigation panel flickered again. For a split second, an unfamiliar set of coordinates flashed on the screen, then vanished. Ethan blinked. Did you see that? Yes, Zyra replied calmly. She's sending me a location. She must have found a way to push it through the haze. Then she can still reach us, Ethan said. Only if I allow it, Zyra replied. The haze bends signals, but it also listens. If we go where she wants, the haze will know. Ethan's brow furrowed. The haze will know. Zyra glanced at him. I told you it's alive. And it remembers. Ethan sat back slowly, feeling the weight of her words. He wasn't sure what that meant exactly, but he had a growing suspicion that the haze itself might play a bigger role in this chase than either of them had realized. Somewhere in the swirling distance, a soft glimmer appeared different from the rest. It pulsed slowly, almost like a heartbeat, and it was directly in their path. Ethan couldn't look away from the glimmer ahead. It was steady, rhythmic, unlike the random sparks they had passed before. The longer he stared, the more it seemed to draw him in, as if the light itself carried a gentle pull. Zyra slowed the ship without saying a word. Her attention was fixed on the glow, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. It's a marker, she said at last. A marker for what? Ethan asked. For those who know the path, she replied. It's not for us, but it's not against us either. That answer didn't make Ethan feel any better. The haze shifted around them, folding in on itself like fabric being twisted. Shadows moved within it, tall, thin shapes that didn't seem to have a source. They kept their distance, but Ethan had the distinct feeling they were watching. The glimmer grew brighter as they approached. Soon, Ethan could see it wasn't just a point of light. It was a structure, floating in the haze without any visible support. It resembled a ring, but not a perfect one. It bent in subtle, almost imperceptible ways, as if resisting the idea of a true circle. The glow came from lines running along its surface, pulsing in time with that heartbeat-like rhythm. What is it? Ethan asked, leaning closer to the window. Zyra didn't answer right away. She guided the ship into a slow orbit around the ring, studying it from every angle. It's older than either of us, she finally said. Older than my people, even. It marks a point where the haze remembers something important. Remembers, Ethan repeated. Yes, Zyra said. The haze isn't just a place, it's a record. It keeps fragments of events. Sometimes those fragments become physical. Ethan looked back at the ring, its light reflecting in his eyes. And why would this be here now? That's what worries me, Zyra replied. Before Ethan could ask more, the navigation display lit up again, showing the same coordinates as before. This time, they didn't vanish. A faint tone echoed through the ship, soft but insistent, like a distant bell calling them forward. She's guiding us here, Ethan said quietly. Zyra's hands hesitated on the controls. Or she's using the haze to guide itself. Either way, this isn't coincidence. The ring's glow began to shift, changing from steady pulses to a pattern, 3 short flashes. A pause, then 2 longer ones. It repeated again and again. Ethan recognized it immediately. That's a signal, he said. A pattern. But I don't know the code. Zyra nodded. It's not your code to know. It's from the first travelers, the ones who entered the haze before history remembered them. This signal is an invitation. Ethan stared at her. And you can read it. Yes, she said simply. The shadows in the haze seemed closer now, not threatening, just present, as though waiting for their choice. Ethan felt a strange pressure in the air, as if the haze itself was holding its breath. Zyra reached for a control, then stopped. Once we pass through that ring, we won't be in the haze as you understand it. Time, distance, even thought it changes inside. We may find what we're looking for, or we may not come back at all. Ethan's voice was quiet. Do we have another option? Zyra gave a faint smile. There's always another option. But sometimes the shortest path is through the unknown. She eased the ship forward. The glow from the ring grew so bright it filled the cockpit, casting long shadows that stretched and shifted on the walls. The hum of the engines faded, replaced by a low, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through their bones. Ethan felt a sudden wave of calm, like stepping into a place he'd been before without knowing it. For a moment, the haze outside was gone, replaced by an endless expanse of light. Then, just as quickly, they were through. The view beyond the ring was unlike anything Ethan had imagined. Vast, shifting skies filled with streams of color that moved like rivers, carrying shapes and fragments within them. Some looked like pieces of ships, others like moments frozen in glass. Zyra took a slow breath. "We've entered the memory stream." Ethan turned to her, and the artifact. Her eyes scanned the flowing patterns ahead. "Somewhere in here. It will show us why she wants it. And maybe what she's not telling us." Ethan swallowed, realizing the journey had just changed entirely. And somewhere in this strange place, he had the unsettling feeling that the voice from before was already waiting. The streams of light moved slowly at first, curling and twisting like ribbons in an invisible wind. Ethan leaned closer to the window, his eyes following the drifting shapes inside them. Some looked like fragments of machinery, while others resembled moments captured in stillness, faces, landscapes, entire scenes that shimmered before dissolving back into the flow. "It feels alive," Ethan said softly. Zyra adjusted the controls with delicate movements, guiding the ship along a narrow path between two bright currents. "It remembers," she replied. "Every traveler leaves something behind. Not all of it can be seen, but the haze collects it anyway." Ethan thought of the voice they had heard, the strange familiarity in it. "And what happens if we find the wrong memory?" Zyra glanced at him briefly. "The stream doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you need. That can be harder to face." As they drifted deeper, the currents grew denser, their glow casting soft patterns across the cockpit. Ethan spotted something ahead, an object suspended in the stream, untouched by the flow around it. It was a sphere, faintly transparent, with tiny points of light swirling inside like a miniature sky. Zyra slowed the ship. "That's not just a memory," she murmured. "That's an anchor." "An anchor for what?" Ethan asked. "For someone who didn't want to be forgotten," she said. The sphere began to rotate slowly, revealing faint lines etched into its surface. They were patterns, repeating and intertwining, almost like writing, but not in any form Ethan recognized. As they watched, the lights inside the sphere shifted, forming an image, a tall figure standing before a great arch, their hands raised toward it. "That's her," Ethan said before he could stop himself. Zyra's gaze sharpened. "You recognize her?" "I think so, but I've never met her." Ethan hesitated. "At least, I don't remember meeting her." The image faded, replaced by a new scene, one of Zyra herself, years younger, standing in a place Ethan didn't know. She was speaking to the same figure, and although there was no sound, her expression was one Ethan had never seen before, unguarded, almost vulnerable. Zyra's hands tightened on the controls. "She's showing us this on purpose." The sphere drifted closer to the ship, as if inviting them to take it. Ethan reached for the retrieval system controls, but Zyra held up her hand. "Not yet. Once we take it, the stream will react. We might not like how." They waited, the hum of the ship blending with the faint, low resonance of the sphere. Then, without warning, the currents around them began to shift direction. The ribbons of light pulled inward, spiraling toward a single point far ahead. Ethan's pulse quickened. "What's happening?" "The stream has decided our path," Zyra said. "It's taking us to the source." The sphere suddenly darted away, carried by the pull of the current. Zyra guided the ship after it, weaving through narrow channels of glowing light. Shapes passed by in flashes, an alien city bathed in gold, a star collapsing into itself, a vast library filled with silent figures. Each moment lasted only a breath before vanishing into the flow. Finally, the sphere slowed again, hovering in front of a vast formation, a colossal, twisting structure that stretched into the distance. It was made of the same glowing material as the currents, but denser, almost solid. "This," Zyra whispered, "is the core memory." Ethan stared. feeling the air in the cabin grow still, somewhere deep inside. He knew whatever they found here would not just explain the artifact, it would change everything they thought they knew about why they were in the haze at all. The sphere pulsed once, and the structure before them began to open.